as is the case with basically everything in the Call of Duty League, in the Call of Duty scene, in Call of Duty as a whole, things don't usually just come easily, right? There's always something that seems to get in the way. There's a monkey wrench thrown in there, and nobody really knows how things are going to happen. That sentiment seems to be the same as what's going on with the acquiring of the OpTic Gaming brand by HECZ. So if you missed it, we talked about this maybe 2 or 3 weeks ago now, where it's rumored that HECZ has reacquired the OpTic Gaming brand from Immortals Gaming Club. Of course, we all know what happened a little bit over a year ago now with Immortals buying out that brand, them taking OpTic Gaming. But of course, anybody at the helm of OpTic Gaming that's not HECZ, it's a brand without really a backing or a following, right? And I think Immortals came across that, they realized that, which is why they sold it back to HECZ. So the thought at the moment, or at least what seemed to make sense, is that HECZ would just go ahead and just take the OpTic name and just move it to Chicago. So they would just be like Chicago OpTic Gaming or OpTic Gaming Chicago, something like that. And then they would just sell the Los Angeles spot to Nadeshot, maybe. You'd have like an LA Thieves type deal, something like that. But that's not what seems to be happening at the moment. Of course, that would be the easy thing, right? HECZ, obviously, they're building what's going on with Chicago. That would be OpTic Chicago. They would sell the LA spot. Everything would be peachy. It seems as though, as of today, some news is coming out to discredit that a little bit. So with this obviously comes from Esports Talk, Jake Lucky over at Esports Talk. He tweeted, this was just a few hours ago now, I have received intel on the OpTic and Chicago HUNTSMEN situation. Keep in mind, anything can happen and nothing is guaranteed, but this is going to be utter madness. So he did go on to put out this video basically explaining what's going to happen. I'm going to also explain that just by kind of using what's happening right here with all of the team logos. So the biggest issue that's occurring right now is that the Call of Duty League as a whole doesn't want brands to leave their location. And listen, I 1000% get this. You're trying to build a league, right? So say you're not really familiar with Call of Duty and you live in, you live in New York City and you start seeing these billboards for the New York Subliners, and maybe you tune into a tournament or two and you start to see, well, this is kind of cool. We have a hometown team in the New York Subliners. This is something that we can follow. Now, from the scene as a whole, people that have been around for a decade, that just the previous scenario that we talked about with OpTic just going to Chicago, that makes sense. But if you're trying to gain traction and gain fans and actually have footholds across all of these cities, you don't want these brands to just, okay, well, New York is the Subliners, and then wait, Seattle's the Subliners. What? New York's the Surge. That just wouldn't make sense, right? All that would do is just confuse people. It would put them off. And then now you're kind of stunting the growth of your league. So what's happening at the moment is that the CDL is essentially, what it seems like, is they're telling HECZ that you can't take OpTic Gaming out of LA. So you can't take that branding, that name, that has to stay there. So if you're thinking in terms of HECZ, well, what do you want to do? Do you just want to sell that again? And then now you're in the same situation that you were in before, or the whole point of buying that brand is because that's his brand, right? That's his baby. So if you're thinking about, well, do we keep the Chicago HUNTSMEN branding, or do we move on over and do we go to OGLA? It seems like the best option would be, you know what, let's try to get rid of that Chicago spot, and then let's go ahead and let's have the NRG ownership above OpTic Gaming Los Angeles. To me, that seems like what would make the most sense. So right now, NRG is the ownership group of the Chicago HUNTSMEN, right? You have NRG, you have Andy Miller, you have HECZ, they're co-CEOs. Parent company is NRG. They own the Chicago HUNTSMEN along with the Seattle Shock and a bunch of other people out there. So what they'll do, at least what I think that they're probably going to do, is they're going to take their ownership group and they are going to take over OpTic Gaming Los Angeles. And then what they'll do is they'll just go ahead and they'll sell that Chicago spot. Now, this might take a very special, interested buyer to go in and buy this Chicago, because the reason why the Chicago Huntsmen are the #1 brand in the Call of Duty League is because of HECZ, is because of SCUMP, is because of Formal and Envoy, and when Arcitys and Pristini were there, right? It's the personalities behind that brand which makes them the #1 most interacted brand in the Call of Duty League. So you might be thinking from just a buyer standpoint, you'll see, well, this is the best brand. This is the one that has the most interactions on social media and YouTube and Twitter and everywhere else. Let's just go in and let's just buy that brand. But it's kind of like the same scenario as with OpTic Gaming all over again. I get that there's not quite the turmoil, right? When HECZ left OpTic Gaming, there was some turmoil there, so the fan base went with them and they said, screw those guys. That's not the same scenario here. It's not like HECZ is being forced out of Chicago Huntsmen, so it would be a much more peaceful transfer of ownership there. But I think it's pretty clear at this point in time, at least while the CDL is still young, that wherever HECZ goes, that's where his fans and the fans of that brand are also going to go. So if you're a potential owner, do you take over the Chicago Huntsmen brand? Sure, you're getting a CDL spot, but how many more fans will still follow that brand in the most dedicated way possible if it doesn't have HECZ and SCUMP and Formal? The only other thing left to touch on here, and this is something that Jake talked about also on Esports Talk, is that what would happen with those contracts that are left with the Chicago Huntsmen? Because as of right now, SCUMP and Formal and Envoy and Dashy and those guys are all signed through next year. So would it be possible for NRG to sell that roster, or to sell the Chicago team, take over OGLA, and be able to trade every single one of their players so that SCUMP and Formal and Envoy and Dashy can still remain with HECZ now under the OGLA brand? I don't know. It seems like there's a lot to unpack here. I'm not quite sure. Let me know down in the comments below what you're thinking about this. One other thing that I wanted to touch on just real quick is that Call of Duty, this was only like an hour ago, put out this tweet. They said, tomorrow darkness falls. This is the haunting of Verdansk, beginning October 20th across Modern Warfare and Warzone. So if you're looking for a reason to get back over to Modern Warfare and play Warzone, this looks insane. This is a 2-minute and 9-second long trailer, and this is one of the coolest gaming trailers I've ever seen. This kind of makes me think back to how World of Warcraft has all those insane trailers and the depth that they put into what they have going on over at WoW. I watched this 2 or 3 times because I thought it was super sweet. So if you're looking for some changes over in the Modern Warfare realm, in the Warzone realm, looks like they're coming tomorrow. Go check that out. But tons of news all across the board. While I like breaking things down analytically and looking at the maps and rotations and all that sort of stuff, every once in a while these things pop up and I feel like I have to touch on them. So comments down below. What do you think about this news? What do you think is going to happen? I mean, the scenarios are endless. Let me know down below. If you're new around here, make sure you go ahead and hit that subscribe button. I put out brand new videos every single day breaking down the Call of Duty League. Leave a like. It really helps the traction on the channel. And with that, guys, thank you so much. We will see you in tomorrow's upload.